Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wench Bench, where friends sit and talk about fabulous fictional females and how their stories have influenced us throughout our lives. My name is Fonda.
And my name is Alison. And today we actually have an extra special episode because our friend Zoe is here to talk about Leslie Knope.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Zoe, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Oh, sure. My name is Zoe. I'm currently a second-year veterinary student. My special interests include learning to knit badly. I love animals, obviously. And I spend a lot of time watching television and movies and reading because I really like stories. And I grew up doing a bit of acting and doing a bit of, reading and writing and stuff like that. So I'm really glad to be on the show and talk about some really cool females.
Yay!
Awesome. So the first question I have is for, in case people don't know, the show that Leslie Knope is from. Can you tell us a little bit what Parks and Rec is?
Sure. So Leslie Knope is a character played by the female comedian Amy Poehler. And Parks and Recreation is, people often compare it to The Office, the American Office, but I kind of think it's its own entity because it's about this little town called Pawnee in Indiana and the little Parks and Recreation department that is working to make the town a better place. It's got a very rich collection of characters that are all interacting under that kind of umbrella, and Leslie Knope is their fearless leader. She's the Parks and Recreation director, and she is kind of in charge of wrangling all these very rich characters together to get stuff done every episode.
Nice. Woman in power.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why I like her, because she, by the end of season 7, she kind of embodies what we would want a leader to be, especially for America today.
It comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, can you just get started by telling us whatever you want to in terms of why you like Leslie Knope?
I think I really like Leslie Knope because I see myself in her a lot. Not in I guess that sounded a little full of myself, but no, it's more just she's one of those people that is unapologetically herself. So every episode, probably 50% of the jokes and the funny things come from her character, it's really refreshing to have a show that's led by a female where, the jokes are not at her expense. Instead she's orchestrating them, and she's such a rich character that the storyline revolves around her, and even when she gets a love interest, it's not about him, it's still about her. Mm-hmm. So she's always enthusiastic and always energetic and is always herself, and she's not self-conscious, and I just really like that because I don't know, people have told me that I'm very quirky, and so it's nice to see a character kind of like me on the TV.
Yeah. It's also nice because statistically speaking, most of the time in comedy shows, the women don't actually get to have jokes. There's a study online where it's the percentage is down in 10% or something that they actually get to have the laughing lines, whereas the men get to have all the other comedy lines even if the entire show is a comedy. So it's nice to hear that she actually gets to have jokes because Amy Poehler is hilarious.
Oh, she's brilliant. And the nice thing about this, too, is having me come and talk about Leslie Knope today is that also Amy Poehler as a female person is amazing. Mm-hmm. She was a writer for SNL and had to deal with a lot of the maleness in that era when she was writing, and people not wanting to listen to a female's jokes and not thinking that she could be as funny. And so I kind of think of her as the, millennial Carol Burnett. She's just kind of forging her own way. Her and Tina Fey and a lot of these female comedians are doing a really great job of actually getting female characters that will hold their own in their own show and comedy acts and all these things. So it's very refreshing for me to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Back to the point where Zoe was like, I'm a quirky person. She is, and I love her so much. You have no idea because you're just meeting her for the first time. But Zoe is a longtime friend of myself, and Alison, you got to meet her around the time I was getting married.
Yes.
But fun was had, let me just tell you, at my bridesmaid party. Okay, so I think what I want to know for why you were so interested in Leslie Knope is, like, are there any flaws that you think also make her a good character? Because sometimes people always talk about the reasons why, like, they're a good person, and it always is in, like, a positive way. Are there any, like, flaws that you like that she has?
Oh, yeah. And what they managed to do is, like, I don't know, Parks and Rec is a very heartwarming show in a sense, too. It's definitely a comedy, like, it's definitely very light, but sometimes it's very topical. And also, everybody gives such an earnest portrayal of these, like, totally varied characters that it's, I don't know, I think of it like one of those, those children's shows where each episode you're supposed to learn something. Like, I don't know, like, Parks and Rec is kind of like that, too. Like, each episode does have a point, and that's kind of nice, too, for modern network television, for it to actually have a point. So, one of Leslie's, I don't know, it's one of those flaws/strengths, is that she's super focused, energetic, overachiever. So one of the gags of the show is that whenever there's a project or something that she needs to present, or she needs to do a filibuster or do anything like that, she always has like 10 binders, and they're all color coded and they're all huge. And nobody reads them because Leslie spent, the joke is too that she stays up all night doing this and she never sleeps. And so I identify with that because a lot of what got me into veterinary school is kind of like just like a tireless commitment to like studying, and to like you have a goal and you want to achieve it, and like that can be a flaw if you over focus on things and you're too perfectionist and it actually holds you back. But the nice refreshing thing about, I keep saying refreshing, so I should find a new adjective. The nice thing about Leslie Knope and Parks and Rec is that they kind of address that, where she has to find other ways to get around that. Like, she can't, when she starts having kids, like, she can't spend the time to make 10 color-coded binders, so she has to find other ways to, like, achieve her goals without being totally hamstrung by her perfectionism. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoy that. That's one of her flaws. Let's see, another flaw.
That's a good flaw to have, though.
Yeah, I mean, and I think all of us have it to some extent. Even people sometimes, like, view procrastinators as being lazy, but most procrastinators are often perfectionists. And so the reason you procrastinate is because you want to get something done exactly right the first time. And so you delay it because you think you won't be able to do it. So I think all of us and perfectionism in society is such a huge thing too, right? Like, we're surrounded by beautiful models on the sides of buses that have perfect bodies, and we need to get promotions at work, and we need to be healthy and fit at home and be good parents for our kids. And so I think everybody experiences this perfectionism that Leslie Knope kind of explores in the show. And it's about still being yourself and getting your goals achieved without having yourself be totally dictated by your anxieties.
A point that I want to say on that, on the point of perfectionism and getting things right on the first try, I know that in high school, I remember like always being like, Zoe has like A's and everything, and Zoe's like doing really great in school. And so do you feel like in a way you kind of identify with the things that Leslie Knope goes through in terms of like perfectionism? Because like I know for school that was like a big thing, and it wasn't until I think recently where you tried to like re-identify with what school was with you, and like grades and like the whole thing that comes with like what it looks like to be perfect and how other people perceive you from getting everything right on the first try or just having good grades. So I was just wondering if that's like another reason why.
Oh, totally. Like I said, I definitely see myself in her, but I think, I don't know, if you do a cursory search of Leslie Knope, a lot of the things are 10 reasons why Leslie Knope is a great leader, 10 reasons why Leslie Knope is who we should aspire to be. And I agree with all of those. She is a wonderful character in the sense that she accomplishes so much and is dedicated to what she does. But she does have this great flaw of perfectionism. And in order for me to get in to school and to get what I've wanted out of life, I've had to kind of give unprecedented rein to my perfectionism. And I'm trying to not do that anymore, because there's so much more to life than just trying to be perfect all the time. And I think by the later seasons, Leslie Knope kind of revels in being less prepared for things, in being able to still achieve things while flying by the seat of your pants. That's why it's a show that I watch over and over again, because I think it has something in it for everyone. There are other characters that you can see yourself in as well. And definitely for her to be like, because she starts off as this Parks and Recreation director in a small town, and she ends up running for governor of Indiana. And yeah, so she's got this huge character arc, and like the whole gist of the show is that like you have to use the people around you as your friends and as your coworkers, and you have to still get what you want without totally battering yourself down into the ground. And that's something that I am so hard trying to work on, because, you know, in school, when you only identify yourself as a student, like, that's really unhealthy, right? Like, and it happens to students all over Canada and all over the world, because we place such an emphasis on marks, on what university you went to, on what grades you got, on what job you have. And it's not healthy to be a student nowadays. You really have to, like, be your own counselor and be your own advocate and cheerleader, and say, like, I am more than my schoolwork. I am more than my degree.
Yeah, check in with yourself whenever you can, right?
And that's, I don't know, I feel like Leslie Knope is a convenient fictional character for that, because she always strives to be more than what she's currently at. When she was a director of Parks and Recreation Pawnee, she was always looking for, like, these big projects that would, like, actually improve the town. And she's like this character who's working within the confines of, like, a restrictive local government in order to get things done. That's a metaphor for what we're all working in, right?
So she's super ambitious.
Very ambitious, but, like, not in the pretentious, like, wants it for the power kind of way. Like, another thing that I really like the writers do for Parks and Rec is that they just make her this character that is so passionate about her thing, and her thing is local government, and like that's like it's a hard thing to be a thing. Right? They managed to give her the hardest thing to be passionate about, but she does it, and that's why it's so creative and such a, like, awesome show, is that, like, her whole character is like, okay, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I want to accomplish, this is the team that I have, I'm just gonna do it. And, like, that's such a way to live your life, man. Like, I just love that. And that's how Amy Poehler is as a person too. Like, she writes a lot of the stuff that comes on that show, and like 50% of it is improv too. With they just got this really strong cast together, and they were like, hey, she likes local government, he's anti-libertarian, she hates everything, he's like dumb as a post, let's put them all together and see what happens.
Oh my gosh, that just makes me think. So what's your favorite, like, relationship or the characters? Because Leslie Knope interacts with so many people on the show,
right? And,
like, each relationship is really wonderful for what it is. Like, her best friend relationship, and, like, the relationship she has with all the women, like Galentine's Day, that's always a thing in all the seasons. So are there, like, certain characters and the relationships that you personally really like for Leslie?
Oh, that is such a wonderful question, because that's the other thing I love about her character, is that she, like, puts herself wholeheartedly into every interaction. So, like, Anne, the character of Rashida Jones, she's introduced as this woman living on the edge of this horrible garbage pit next to her house, and so she goes to Leslie Knope in the Parks and Rec department and says, I need you to fill this hole in, because it's just like an eyesore to the neighborhood and people are falling in and breaking their ankles and stuff. And then it just sparks this, like, friendship between Anne and Leslie, and people actually, there's some really funny, like, videos online where people have edited the show to, like, be a lesbian love story between the two of them. Yeah, because their interactions are so, like, lovely, like, and pure. They're very, like, Leslie Knope is, like, the most supportive best friend, right? Like, sometimes to a fault. She really puts her friends above herself and does everything she can to support them and fights for them and wants to be involved in their lives. So like seeing that little best friend relationship is like, it's really nice to just see someone so committed to their friends. And then her romantic relationships on the show are really interesting too. I mean, there's, what's his name? I have to look it up.
So I know isn't there a guy named Dave?
Yeah.
A guy named Justin. And a dude named Mark.
Yes. Mark Brandanowitz. I knew he has a long last name. So Mark Brandanowitz is like, he is the antithesis to Leslie almost. So like where she has this passion for local government and for making change on a local scale, he hates his job. He hates politics, hates the local government, hates everyone he works with. And they have this like brief fling, mostly because Leslie's a little lonely and she sees people around her in relationships, so she kind of wants one too, and she's always kind of thought Mark was good looking and all this kind of stuff. But then the nice thing is that they finally, talk, and then she realizes that, oh, I actually don't like this guy. And then she gets to move on. And so the whole show, like, she gets to have multiple love interests and people. There's another guy that she really connects with, but then it's just not at the same phases in life, so they separate. And so when she finally gets to Ben, who many people have touted as the perfect match for her, and they have like such an ideal relationship, I think of it more like it was a wonderful way for her to have a romance but still keep everything about her. And the show did not become about the romance, and it did not become about him. And in fact, so basically, like, he comes in and he's like auditing and looking at their finances with
isn't he the handsome dude that's like all about fitness?
No, that is, I'm blanking on the name. Rob Lowe, yeah, Chris Traeger. Okay, that's who it is. Okay, back.
Okay.
So, the thing that I really like when she finally enters into a relationship with Ben, so him and Rob Lowe, who plays Chris Traeger, they come and they're investigating, and basically the whole, like, contrivance is that Ben and Leslie can't be together because they work together, and if anyone finds out, they'll be fired. So they kind of do this little like under the table romance for a few episodes, and it's really sweet and really cute. You can tell they really like each other. And then the really cool thing is that once that contrivance is done and they want to be out in the open, it's not Leslie that gives up her job, it's Ben. And so he is, so that, and people don't think that's a big deal, but I think it's a big deal.
It's a massive deal.
Yeah, in a society where we kind of expect women to be the ones to give everything up and have kids and give up their careers and, care for the husband and the children, like, it's a big deal. And the nice thing, too, is that it's Ben and her that choose to do that, because Ben knows that she is so passionate and such a powerhouse in her field that it would be a shame for Pawnee if she wasn't allowed to do her job. And like, so it's such a like lovely little thing that they added in, that she could have this relationship but she didn't have to give up her career for it. And I just love that.
I haven't watched Parks and Rec because it was on Netflix and then it was gone, and I was so sad because I actually never got a chance to watch it. But being a millennial and going on the internet at all, I love seeing the clips and stuff of their relationship and how it really is seems like such a teamwork dynamic, because those kind of healthy, good relationships are really important to see. Because when we were growing up, we had relationships like Ross and Rachel, which were toxic and not really good examples. So I assume that you like the fact that it's really quite a healthy relationship where they are a team and they, I imagine, talk to each other about their problems and work through it like normal people do.
Yeah, it is definitely pretty healthy. They're both allowed to pursue their careers and have their mutual friends and their own friends. And Leslie does at one point call them a team, and everything that they do is teamwork. And when they get married, she talks about them as a team. And the nice thing is that the show kind of follows them right from the budding romance to the very end. And so, like, by the last season, she's got triplets, and it kind of shows them being parents together. And I think it's a relationship that a lot of people will like, because, again, they're both unapologetically themselves. Like, he's a huge nerd. He's a very, like, loves Star Wars. He, like, designs his own tabletop board game. And the joy of seeing them together is that they never made compromises on who they were for each other, because they were just able to fit in together and love each other for who they were.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other relationships on the show that are kind of like that. Like, I think of April and Andy, which is not what always comes to mind when people think of the healthy relationship. But I think, in terms of character growth, if we were to diverge from Leslie Knope for a second, talking about the character arc of April and Andy, holy crap. If I'm allowed to say a profanity on a live podcast.
We've said the F word, so you're totally allowed to say it.
Okay, excellent. So Andy is this character who starts off as Anne's boyfriend. He lives in their house and does no housework, never helps her with anything, yells at her to get him stuff from the kitchen. And then when Leslie comes along and becomes Anne's friend, and when Andy starts working for the city council on the project to fill in the pit, he gets this wonderful growth where he goes from this absolute slob that everyone hates to this totally lovable, positive, so stupid but like so sweet guy. And everybody just starts to realize that he had it in him all along, and he just needed the right people to bring it out. And then April is this other great character. She's like this angry teenager that's hired on as the intern, and she hates everyone, is always sarcastic, never smiles, revels in, like, she would probably read the Book of Satan, and like she revels in other people's being uncomfortable around her and stuff. And so they have this like wonderful little romance in the halls of the city building, and she kind of grows into someone who's actually exceptionally good with responsibility. And she kind of credits it all to Leslie, because Leslie has this unflagging belief in every single person that she chooses to be friends with, that they can be whatever they want to be. So April is able to rise to these higher levels of government, and then Andy comes along for the ride, and they have this really cute romance where they both just are so happy with each other, and they end up getting married on the spur, and no one thinks it's going to work out. And then when the episode does the 10 years later segment, they're still together and they have kids. And so I think that's another really cute relationship too, because it was these two people who seemed unredeemable, then not necessarily finding it in each other and being totally transformed in that way, but finding it in their friends as well, right? So it's less about, I don't know, I get kind of tired of people talking about the transformative nature of relationships romantically, and how, you can only change as a person or be a better person if you find someone to love. But I do think that you can have that with friends as well, right? So like they both changed because of each other, but they both changed because of who they were surrounded by. Yeah. I think that's kind of a nice relationship for people to see on television as well.
Yeah, people being shaped by their environment and everything around them, because it's not just relationships, and that's not undercutting your significant other. I know many people find that completion when they do meet their person, whether that person lasts for 5 months or that person lasts for 20 years. Like, you can't have somebody come into your life and spend every day with them at something like work or in a friendship and not have them affect you in some way. And yeah, I think those kind of relationships are really important to explore in things like television and fiction.
Especially because I really like Leslie's relationship with Ron.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
That's a good relationship, especially because Ron's just such like, he's like the man, like quote unquote, like the man trademark. But he's more than that. Like, yeah, he has these traits where he's like, I only eat raw meat things, and I have this gruff looking face, and I never smile, and I got a mustache. But like, he loves Leslie, and
Yeah.
Leslie loves him for their friendship. And like Leslie's like, I know your birthday. He's like, Baskin Robbins knows my birthday. That doesn't say anything about our friendship.
Yeah.
And she's like, no one else knows her birthday. And so it's just like, I love Leslie because out of someone that seems so hard to have a friendship with, like Ron Swanson, she made a wonderful friendship.
Oh, totally. I love them. And like, talk about character growth too, right? Ron starts off as this, you know, curmudgeon that hates government and is only in it for the pension, and you know, like, hates all his says he hates all his coworkers, and then, you know, by the end of the show he actually works for the National Park Service as a park ranger, something he never said he would do, but he does it because of the friends he made along the way, which is like, I just love that. I love shows that are focused on friendship. And Leslie Knope was the person that like was able to get through those layers of onion, and she always finds a way to find out what each person can give to the workplace and what each person can give to the friendship, and then she just runs with that.
Nice. That's going to lead into something that I'd like to talk about, which is the value of having it be a woman leader in a show, and how, from what I can tell from what you've been telling me and from what I've seen, is that she not only has a lot of regular intelligence, but also emotional intelligence. And I'm wondering how you found that work as far as she was treated as a person of power, like...
Oh yeah, because
women shouldn't be presidents because if they're on their period, they're gonna hit the button and then things
Everything's
go
gonna
down.
explode.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, she deals with that a lot in the show. Like, people, not just for being a female, but people also just not liking passion. And they try to stop whatever project that she's working on because they hate their own jobs, or they don't think a woman should be able to get that far with that project and stuff like that. I mean, they have a fun little bit on Meninists on the show, and like her, you know, like trying to be a feminist as best she can in Pawnee, which is a pretty conservative little Indiana town. So I definitely think that is something that she has to deal with as a female character, and I think that's the power of having her mainline the show for 7 years, a show about government.
Yeah.
And that's really cool, right? Like, and it's kind of overlapped a bit with Hillary Clinton, and it's like when you look at like Ocasio-Cortez and like what she's trying to do now, like there's these little Leslie Nopes like working all over the United States and Canada right now, and
cool. And from what you said, it sounds like at the beginning her needing to be a perfectionist was really about her desire to be taken seriously and to be able to be in charge, because she did have all of that ambition, but then she realized that perfectionism isn't all that you need to succeed in the political world. There's so many other things that you have to do. And then when she kind of started accepting herself and letting herself be whoever she needed to, letting go of a little bit of that perfectionism, she actually could succeed even more in her job, because just because you're a woman doesn't mean you necessarily have to overcompensate to that degree.
yes, yeah. That's what a lot of people say of her characters, that like she's just too over the top, right? Like, oh, women aren't like that. They can't be like, I've heard people say it, like I didn't think it was a believable show because she's just too enthusiastic. And I was like, oh, is it that surprising to see a woman be enthusiastic and passionate about something? Like, is that just something that we don't allow ourselves to see or support?
Yeah, it feels like the only time in shows, older shows, not like shows nowadays that you can find on Netflix or like even like international shows. But I remember growing up, I feel like the one thing girls were always enthusiastic about were boys.
Right.
Fashion. Clothes, like celebrities, music, like bands. And I feel like that was the only thing growing up being like, it's normal to have those obsessions, but you didn't get to see other women of any kind have a passion that wasn't outside of that spectrum.
and family. Obviously, whenever there was like a mom character, her passion was the family, which is fine. I think that's a healthy thing, but there's not always going to be a female character who is passionate about family. Mm-hmm. And so just showing those main umbrella things of what a character should be passionate about, it's sort of, I think, sad that a man or other people could be like, a woman can't be that passionate. It's like, have you seen a whole bunch of other shows where like men are a lead in something and they're passionate about sports and they're passionate about like maybe they have a hobby in painting or maybe they're like they can talk whatever they're passionate about and it's realistic. Mm-hmm. But to have a lady be passionate throughout the whole show about something
Something that's not a man.
Yeah.
I also think that that's where the disconnect that we've talked about in a couple of our other episodes comes in, where some people can't connect with her simply because she's a woman, where in hearing this, I find a connection to the fact that she has to do everything perfect, because as a woman in government, in a public setting, she is not afforded the same opportunities or even forgivenesses.
It's like to get to the same level, she has to go at 150% instead of 100%.
Yeah. And to bring it a little bit back to me, I ran for city council. And yeah, just trying to simply be heard over men was very difficult. And just trying to be taken seriously as somebody who cared and wanted to make a change, I can only imagine how difficult that was to then get to the place of power and have her actually maintain that level of passion. Because in lots of government, that's what they're actually finding. That's why there's not as many women in politics in general, in the real world, because they drop off, because we have to push so much harder. We have to have so much more passion. And we have to be so much more intense about it because it has to carry us further. It has to carry us a longer distance simply to survive. I love that they portrayed that in an accurate way, it sounds, on a show so people can actually see. It's like, yeah, do the things you're passionate about and fight through the things that are trying to stop you.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what was so nice about her character, and what, I don't know, it's interesting that people found it unbelievable is like the resiliency of having people constantly kibosh her projects and tell her ideas are stupid and that there's no money in it and all these things, but then she still like just puts her head down and works. And that is, you know, like she had enough resiliency to get through that, but I feel for the women that don't get the support, right? And then they do drop off earlier, but those are the voices that we really need.
Yeah, and that, yeah, those supports are so important. How many times has somebody said no to you guys for an idea that you put forward in something like a group project in school? In the whole world, like, countless. And a lot of times I think a lot of people take that for granted because just, I work in trades. I'm surrounded by men. The amount of times that I talk to them about something from my world, they don't even realize that that's an issue. And that's the basis of the importance of why we're talking about these characters and why it is important that they simply exist in the world for other girls to see, is that, yes, this is something we have to deal with. We have to be told no a bunch of times, but if you really care about something, you have to keep going. Because you are going to be told no, depending on your age, your sex, the color of your skin, your gender, your whatever, your anything. Most of the time you're going to run into speed bumps, and for some people it's going to be, those bumps are going to be a lot bigger than for others. And it's nice to hear about a character who kept going. Said, fuck that bump.
Fuck that bump.
I got good shots. It'll be fine.
I like Leslie, though. I'm so glad you came to talk about her because I've seen Parks and Rec, and when you were talking about it when we had sushi, I was like, this would be a great thing to talk about because she is a good character, and not just because she's female. I feel like in general, just the character traits that Leslie Knope has, and the story arc and how she is written makes her for a good character. And she could be a freaking alien and have all these things about them and have it be on a different planet, and I still think it'd be wonderful just because of like the themes that get addressed. Oh, so one thing I also want to ask, because like Leslie has like a lot of quirky things about her. I was wondering if there's ever been like something that came up on a show that you really personally liked. For me, example, I loved it when she forced Anne to watch all of the Harry Potter movies. Yes. I just loved that. I was like, yes, watch Harry Potter. And so I thought like certain things that she does is sort of like relatable on a real level too, because she's a fictional character. Like she'll have reactions with friends, and like I think there's one where she tells Anne to text her every 30 seconds to tell her she's okay. And I'm like, I've had friendships like that where and so I think like there's certain things that happen that just make her more well-rounded.
Yeah, and
of a
believable.
Yeah, so I was wondering if there's certain things that ever showed up in seasons that you were like, ah, oh, Leslie.
The one that springs to mind immediately is just how much she loves waffles. So Leslie, basically, there's this waffle place in Pawnee, and she just adores it, and she has waffles there all the time. And then even at their wedding, they have waffles, her and Ben, and she's loves waffles so much that at one point the owner of the waffle place says like, "Oh, Leslie, do you want your tab for today?" She goes, "Oh yeah, sure, how much is it?" It's like, "Well, you've spent $1,000 this year alone on waffles here, so we'd really like you to just keep going." I'm like, I love that because I'm also hyper focused on food and have favorite foods, and there was this dim sum place where I used to live, and it was like the greasiest, most horrible dim sum joint, and I'm pretty sure they sold weed out of it. Like, it was awful, but I would always order chicken fried rice and barbecue pork from there at like 2 a.m. and get it delivered to my house while I was studying. And yeah, so I love that Leslie is again just like unapologetically into the things that she is into and just loves it and loves things wholeheartedly. Also, as a friend, I feel like I identify with Leslie a lot, forcing people to watch Harry Potter and like wanting them to text me back and stuff. Like, I would say I'm a little bit more of an introverted extrovert than she is. I would say she's very extroverted and she thrives with people, whereas I'm a little more, I like to have my alone time after hanging out with friends and such. But like her just complete commitment to her friends and loving them for everything that they are and like willing to throw down with anyone that crosses them, like I'm definitely like that.
Ride or die.
Yeah, ride or die. So I love her and Anne's friendship. I love what her and April's friendship grows to be once she kind of thaws April down. And I definitely, like, she has so many little quirky things that she does in the show because she loves her friends, and I just love that that's one of the main themes of the show, is that you can love your friends completely, and it can be just as rich as a romantic relationship.
Yeah, just as valuable, right?
Because I think, I don't know, I watch a lot of anime too, and like I really like the slice of life animes that kind of focus on the power of friendship. And I know it's corny, but I really like that because, like, I don't know, like, I've been single for pretty much most of everything, and it's really nice to have things not always be about romance and to, like, be able to have really, really nice relationships with people that you don't have to, like, be self-conscious about and, like, worry about it developing into marriage, you know?
Yeah. Those, I think, friendships are just as, if not sometimes more important than, I'm going to say, a romantic relationship, because a romantic relationship I think everyone wants in some format. But if we didn't have friends, I think humans would be so lonely, right?
Yes.
Like, if all you were doing was searching for a romantic person and that was it, like, I can only, like, there's things that I don't do with Adam that I would much rather do with my friends, because I love my friends for the things that they provide me. And I think friends are just so, like, wholesome, you know? Like, you can have a laugh and you can, like, shoot the shit with a friend and you can just, like, do something and you can have, like, inside jokes, and those lasting friendships can be so important. And like, you might not be friends with someone all the time, but even then, that relationship that you had with someone maybe for 5 years that fell through still gave you something. Versus like, there's the heartbreak of losing someone in a romantic sense, and sometimes that can be a lot more harmful to you, but it's during those points where maybe you have an important downfall with your romantic person at the time. Friends will always be there. Like, a romantic person might not always be there. And so that's why I think more shows should have more really good friendships that thrive.
I think we as women are actually really fortunate because we did get things like Sailor Moon, where we were truly raised to, so many girls were raised to value friendship and to be unashamed of having a close connection with our fellow girlfriends. And I feel like that's a real disadvantage that boys got, is that they always kept each other at an arm's length because they were afraid of coming off as anything less than straight, manly men who are not allowed to have feelings or cry.
Yeah, it's that hyper masculinity complex where if you depict anything that's too romancy for friendship, then it's like,
Or too feminine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's very damaging, and I think it'd be nice if, I'm trying to think, like, on Parks and Rec, they do a nice job of, like, kind of having the men grow to be friends with each other too, and just be themselves and enjoy each other's time, and, like, that's kind of nice too. So I think they did kind of address that on the show. As much as it's a female empowerment kind of show, it also kind of, the men are there to support the female characters, but also to just have a different view on what a male character can be. And I kind of enjoyed that as well.
That's good. Feminism is for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody benefits from it.
Yes.
Are there any other, like, favorite Leslie moments, episodes, or quotes you would like to share with our listeners?
Okay, I'm just gonna make sure I get it right.
No problem.
No, you're not allowed. Put your phone away. We definitely don't have pages of notes when we do our episodes.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm constantly pulling things up and being like, am I saying the name correctly?
Okay, oh man. Okay, I think this is so there's this episode where Leslie has been asked to lead a session for the Model UN at Pawnee's High School. And so she brings in the Parks and Rec department, and they're all kind of overseeing these kids, and each group is like a different country, you know, like Model UN. So they're all kind of like interacting and trying to do diplomacy and all that. And then there's this great part where I think her and Ben are like having a fight at the same time. And so it's like their fight overlaid with this like Model UN thing. And she gets like so angry at one of the things that they pass as a bill that she like, Ben says like, you should be waving a white flag. She goes, the only thing I'll be waving is your decapitated head on a stick in front of your weeping mother. And then everybody's like, what the fuck?
A bunch of children.
Yeah, no. That's like,
Leslie's never that dark.
yeah, like, it was like the best. Like, I loved that because it was just like her completely unrestrained, like, diplomatic passion paired with her, like, love for Ben, just like coming out in this completely vulgar statement that she would never normally say. And yeah, so that's like probably my favorite quote.
That's so good.
That's awesome.
I forgot about that episode. That's a good episode.
Yeah, that's such a funny episode. It's also the episode where Andy's like, oh, I sold all our like war resources and I bought a bunch of like lions to defend our country. And April's like, I don't think you should have done that. And he's like, well, you could have like tanks or you could have lions. Or it's like velociraptors, or he got something that was just like totally ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. Oh boy, it's a good show.
I'm so sad it's not on Netflix anymore.
You can find it. I always, I have my ways.
Zoe's got the ins and outs of the
Oh,
Park
yeah.
and Rec resources.
You know, the piracy of my fave show.
Yes.
Just publicly talking about piracy like no one else doesn't do it.
It's illegal to host. It's not illegal to watch. So
There you go.
there you go.
Streaming is legal now.
You do not need to feel the guilt.
Not the guilt. So Zoe, I would like to ask you if there's anything that you're also excited about outside of Leslie Knope and Parks and Recreation.
Okay, well, I can think of two things.
Tell us both.
Okay, so one is that Spider-Man Far From Home is coming out soon,
Yay.
which I am very excited about, because Endgame wrecked me, and I need a little something to keep me going, and a little fresh-faced Spider-Man is just the thing I need. Also, there's been a lot of good shit on Netflix lately. Like, they put out, they put out the second season of this show called Dark, which is the one that I always tell Fonda about. It's really good. If you're ever into international shows, there's
Yes.
like a bunch of really good ones on Netflix, and they're usually sci-fi related. And so this
Yes.
one is like a time travel German show.
Ooh.
It's really good. So the
I
second
kept seeing
season
that
came out.
on my suggestions.
Oh,
should
it's
watch it.
excellent. I binged the first season so hard, and it was wonderful. Acting good, audio is amazing, cinematography lovely. Yeah, it's really
All
good.
the stuff.
Yeah.
I love a good international show. I find the way that they go at different storylines so much more interesting.
Oh, I find that acting is usually better. It depends.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple shows that like don't have as good acting, but like I find like also the style of acting is slightly different, and that's like acting is something I'm very interested in because I like studied it growing up, and
Oh, me too.
yeah, so I just like I really like, I don't know, I don't even want to call it European because by country it varies. Like France has a very different style as well.
Yes.
And they've put out some really cool shows in the past 10 years that have been able to get to North America because they also have their own completely rich cinematic world there too. It's just that we only get a few shows on our that we are able to access.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be like if I could like somehow get access to more international shows, I would love that.
Yeah. I remember I was so sad that it ended, but it was supposed to. The Almighty Johnsons.
Oh,
It's from,
yeah.
like, it's Norwegian, I think.
Yeah.
Or New Zealand. Yeah, New Zealand.
Yeah.
I was wrong. Not Norwegian. What was I talking about? It was from New Zealand. And I'm like, I have to go back and watch it again because I've already watched it like twice. But I have to figure out if there's any actual like strong female characters because unfortunately that show follows like a ton of men.
Oh yeah.
There's like no women in it. And I don't actually remember if an entire series passes the Bechdel test, which is
Right.
like baffling.
Another 30 Rock with Tina Fey would be another good
yeah.
one for like female protagonists.
I love
Because
Tina Fey.
she's also a total powerhouse in that show and writes it because she wrote for SNL as well. What are some other good shows?
She-Ra, you know.
She-Ra. Yeah, I mean another
Power of friendship.
the power of friendship. I am such a bitch for the power of friendship. I fucking love it. I live for it. Love it.
Nuclear.
power of
I'm
friendship.
such a bitch for the power of friendship. I love that.
I want that on a t-shirt. Get that tattooed on my ribs.
Oh, Zoe, I love you. Oh, well, unless you ladies have anything else you'd like to say, I think
good.
Zoe did a fantastic job.
Thanks,
Yes.
guys.
Round of applause for Zoe.
Aww. I was trying to not be perfectionistic about today's show.
Well, you did swimmingly.
I hope I channeled my inner Leslie.
Yes. Very well done.
You took the curveballs with excellent precision.
Thank you.
You're
Did
so
a
welcome.
filibuster on roller skates.
Yes.
And completely without notes or anything, like Fawn and I.
I did my own research, but I just kept it in the old noggin.
Just the old noggin. Like most information that we love
Yes.
is kept in-house. Ah, Well, on that note, you can find us wherever podcasts can be found, and please make sure to rate and subscribe if you haven't already.
You can follow us on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram at Wench Bench Pod. And if you want to reach out, you can send us an email at wenchbenchpod@gmail.com.
All the art for the Wench Bench was designed by the wonderful Tessa Joyce Riecken. You can find her on Twitter at WereVile.
Thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye.